All right, if you only watch one Dynasty show pre-NFL draft, this is the one you want to watch. It is the 7th annual Dynasty Rookie March Madness brackets. We're doing the top 24 rookies. They were voted on Twitter. We got two special guests tonight to help us break it down, so stay tuned.
Going for two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the Armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah.
What is going on, and welcome to episode 416 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I am your host, of course, Jeff Lambert, and follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. As I mentioned at the top, we got two great guests joining us tonight. We got Josh of GoingFor2.com. You can follow him at Rotonaut. What's up, Josh?
Hey, how's it going? Feels good to be back on the show. Haven't been on any type of show for 2 months. Been taking some time off, doing baseball things. But yeah, it's good to be back. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Of course, you could find Josh usually on the Dynasty Saturday Night 5 show on here, Going for Two, usually on Saturdays. I think him and Brian are going to be firing it up here pretty soon, so be on the lookout for that. Our next guest, of course, needs no introduction, Mr. John Laub of PlayerProfiler.com. You can follow him at GridironSkull91. What's up, John?
Hey, man, a ton. I love this time of the year. I think I've been on with you like 6 of the last 7 years, Jeff.
All 7.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. And Josh, I have a question for you.
Okay.
I've been playing fantasy baseball since 1990. Have I played baseball longer than you're alive?
I was probably, because I was born in 1990, but it was December.
Oh my God. So I'm as years old. I've been playing. What is this going to be then? My 35th year. So there you go, my brother.
Yep. Wow.
That is awesome. That's crazy.
Barry Bonds was on my first fantasy baseball team ever when he was a Pirate. That's how long I've been playing.
That's a good pick, though.
He was
especially
awesome,
Dynasty,
dude.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, as I mentioned at the top, we're going to be doing a rookie bracket that we did. We did it on Twitter. We lined them up, matched them up, the top 24 rookies. Let me get the live read out the way, and then we'll kind of break down how we're going to do this tonight. So if you haven't checked out Underdog Fantasy, you're missing out. Underdog is the industry-leading best ball platform. Just draft your team, let the season play out. No waivers, no setting lineups, just pure fantasy domination. If you love pick'em contests, Underdog has you covered with player props for all major sports. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite players and win big. Right now, you can sign up with promo code GF2 and get up to $1,000 in bonus bucks on your first deposit. That's free money to get you into the game. Of course, you must be 18 or older in the state where Underdog Fantasy is legal. Terms apply. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so the premise of this, I took the top 24 rookies. The number 1 and number 2 seeds each get a bye week. So we'll do the other round. The first round will be all the lower seeds, the 3 through 6. It's a March Madness style brackets. I did not put Travis Hunter in the top 24, so if you're wondering where he is, I took him out. I just don't think he's going to be having enough value in fantasy to really talk about him tonight. And through each round, we will talk about the loser of each match. But before we get started, John, I wanted to bring it up because you mentioned that you've been on, the last 6 or 7 years. So I went back and looked to see what it was, and it was actually 7 years. This is our 7th one. Started doing this show in 2019.
Okay.
It was episode 78. So we're on 416 now. So episode 78 was when we did the show. And I watched the show, and there was one particular matchup that I wanted to bring up because looking back on it now, it's kind of funny. This was before we did the bye week for the 1 seeds, and we had a matchup of a 1 seed versus a 6 seed. Of course, we all loved the 1 seed.
Oh no!
But looking back on it now, the 1 seed was N'Keal Harry, and the 6 seed was Terry McLaurin.
Oh my God! Oh, that is killer, dude.
Brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah, I don't think anybody saw that one coming, but yeah, for sure, that was interesting when I went back and watched it. Like, man, if we only knew what we knew now, that would have been a amazing pull there.
Oh my God! I don't even think N'Keal Harry's in the NFL anymore, right? Last night, he's gone.
He was a tight end for a little while, and then he's out the league completely. And then Terry McLaurin, I think, was a top 12 receiver last year. So yeah, good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into the bracket here. All right, we'll kick it off here with the first matchup. It is the 4-5 matchup. Wide receiver Eric Iomanner and wide receiver Jalen Royals. And Iomanner takes this matchup here 58 to 42. So we'll talk about Jalen Royals here, the loser of this matchup. John, give me your thoughts on Royals.
This is about, I have them close in my rankings. They're both in the top 10. I do obviously like Iomanner more, but Jalen Royals, man, if there's a young man who can beat the G5 level and succeed in the NFL, I do believe Royals has a very good chance. He's 6 foot, 205 pounds. Now, he's a developmental prospect because he's basically only played 2 years at Utah State, which is a G5 program. But you need to project out for this young man. And if he can get some good coaching that brings him up, he needs some help when off the ball. And sometimes he gets a little lazy in and out of his routes with his breaks. If he can fix those 2 items and he matures, I think Jalen Royals could break that G5 level ceiling. It's about a 1 in 5 shot, but I like his odds of doing it.
Good stuff. Josh, what are your thoughts on Royals here?
John hit the nail on the head. He is a work in progress, and that might take some time, which a lot of dynasty players aren't willing to use. Maybe an early second, mid second on someone like that. I personally like the fact that Iomanner won. I have him a little bit higher also, but I have Royals at 10 in wide receivers. Iomanner, I think, at 6 or 7. So he's a little bit ahead, but not too far. 58-42. I figured it'd be pretty close.
Yeah, this one was fair. This is probably one of the closer matchups in the entire thing here. It was, pretty close there, right down to the wire. So, all right,
really bad beat for both, having to go up against Ashton Jancy next anyway. So
yeah, exactly, exactly. Let's go ahead and jump into the 3-6 matchup. We got tight end Colton Loveland. He wins this matchup 89-11 over another tight end, Harold Fannin. And I'll go to you first on this one, Josh, because I think pre-combine or really early on in the process, a lot of people had Fannin as their tight end too. And Loveland sort of crept up and overtook him there. But give me your thoughts on Fannin as a tight end. He's the loser in this matchup, 89-11.
Yeah, so I think, like you said before the comment, this would have been really close and he might have won. But the concerns everyone had with him pre-combine were just confirmed in the combine, especially when you watch him. Can't remember the name of the drill where you run on a straight line catch it. His knees were literally hitting each other, and a lot of people said that's kind of an issue for him running routes in open field and just being athletic, catching the ball. I mean, he is athletic, but doing it fluidly and doing it all in one motion is a different thing. I think he's still going to get drafted fairly well with the athleticism, but I think Loveland has a chance to even be better than some people say. He's better than Tyler Warren. I'm not there yet, but his draft stock's rising a lot, and I think he's going to be drafted really high by an NFL team.
Good stuff. What about you, John? What are your thoughts here on Harold Fannin?
When I plugged him in the model in December, he looked unbelievable. The numbers were absolutely spectacular. He might have had the greatest season by a college tight end in the history of the game. I mean, he led the nation in catches, yards. He was like first among tight ends and touchdowns. Simply amazing. But Josh alluded to it throughout this process. Unfortunately, his athleticism isn't as good as we hoped. He's just not big enough. I mean, I always say you like tight ends who are big in the butt. He's just a 240. That's just the tweener. That's the classic tweener. He plays at the G5 level. So there's unfortunately too many boxes that he doesn't check. I like him. I think he's going to go on day 3 now. And I think he's kind of like a versatile weapon. Maybe he develops. Why can't I remember Jonnu Smith at Miami? Maybe he can develop like a Jonnu Smith, but it will probably take a while.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been hearing as well. The process kind of hurt his stock a little bit because, yeah, had I done this pre-combine, this matchup would have been a whole lot closer, I believe.
Yeah, and they're both of them are around 240, like maybe 250, but at least Loveland's 6'6" as opposed to 6'3". Against linebackers, that extra 3 inches in safeties could really pay off and help.
Yeah, you can add weight at the NFL level, but you can't add height. You're pretty much grown at that point. All right, let's move into the next 4-5 matchup here. We got 2 receivers. We got Jaden Higgins winning this matchup against wide receiver Isaiah Bond. He wins the matchup 76-24. Josh, I'm me go to you first, John, this time. Isaiah Bond, what are your thoughts on Isaiah Bond?
I've never been a Bond guy. I know there are some people who don't like him, but over this process, his draft stock has fallen pretty far. If we were doing this in December, there were people who had Bond in like the top 6 wide receivers available.
I did.
He was an absolute burner, but I do have a model. I do watch the games. Every time I watched Bond, either at Alabama and Texas, and he was a transfer, I never once said he's the best player on the field. He always left me leaving more like is he determined enough? Does he have the passion and the fire? I just don't like him. And now I wonder if he's even going to be drafted in the first 2 days. He might go on day 3 now. And I think we'll talk about another teammate who people have clued into more. But I didn't like Bond at Alabama, and I didn't think he came through to Texas.
Yeah, I was with you on that. I had him ranked much higher than I do now.
Yes.
He's slipped quite a bit for me as well. He probably would have won this matchup if I had done this earlier in the season or early in the offseason.
Oh, yeah.
Quite easily, probably. What about you, Josh? What are your thoughts on Bond here?
No, I agree. I've never really been a fan. And this is someone who, if they just maybe kept their mouth quiet before the combine, he might not have dropped this far. But saying you're going to beat, Isaiah Worthy's and then 4.39 is not bad, but it's not. It looks bad when you're saying you're going to do something a lot better than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
hey, guys, I went on every date. Keep the expectations low.
Yep.
I learned that the hard way.
But my main issue with him is production. He only had 99 catches, I think, in 3 seasons, and I was looking just at a glance, maybe 1, maybe 2 100-yard games in his career, and it's
not good when you look at the production.
Yeah, and that does matter. It's not the end all be all, but I at least want to see something to have upside.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I said this, and then we'll move on quickly. Name one Isaiah Bond moment that is memorable as a football fan. And again, that's not end all and be all, but there isn't any. There just literally isn't any.
Good point. All right, let's hit the 3-6 matchup in this part of the brackets. This was the most lopsided round 1 here. Tight end Tyler Warren wins his matchup 96-4 against wide receiver Savion Williams. And John, I'm gonna go to you first on this one because this was the guy. Because I took these rankings from DLF, and I did top 24 guys and just tiered them out. And Savion Williams is not one that I even had in my top 24. I actually had to go look and see who he was. So give me your thoughts on Savion Williams. I know he got blown out in this matchup, but is there some dynasty value with this guy?
I'm going to disappoint people. If you put him on a spectrum, he's Laviska Shenault and Cordero Patterson. And I think he's much more, unfortunately, to Laviska Shenault side of the spectrum than he is the Cordero Patterson. I mean, if we had a Patterson career, you could argue, okay, not so bad. but I think he's going to be like Laviska Shenault. And this is where I think experience and watching film matters. Like, I get it. He's athletic. He's big. He's strong. He fits every box, but he's just not good. I mean, like, and when you watch guys like Laviska Shenault and Cordell Patterson, then you see him in the NFL. I feel like I've learned from my mistakes. I don't have him in the top 24 at all. I'd have to be a 5th round flyer for me. I'm not interested. I think they got it right, man. 96-4. You got it right. The fans got it correct.
Fans got it correct. I think Savion Williams himself must have voted to get that little 4% there.
It's family and him.
Yeah, exactly. Josh, I know you said pre-show you didn't really get a chance to look at him, but do you have any thoughts on him at all?
No, the comps I've seen were Cordell Patterson, and I watched a quick little 3-minute video of his highlights, and I could see more of the Laviska Shenault out, like you said, something like that. Maybe just a gadget special teams player. The special teams element might keep him on rosters and keep him fairly relevant, but yeah, not top 24 by any means.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tyler Warren, though, I just want to say something on him. Like, dude's a freak watching him play, but at the same time, there are some concerns, and I'm kind of torn on where I stand on this. I got to do more on this. Even though he only played 4 years, he's still a 5th-year breakout. Before that, he only had 34 catches for 422 yards. A lot of people are drawing comps to Dalton Kincaid in that sense, and I was never on Kincaid. Me and Brian argued about that a lot. So there's those concerns, but at the same time, you watch him play, and I don't want to not draft a guy and watch him ball out just because, he's old,
Right.
So I'm kind of torn. He's going to be really good, but there are some concerns and there is some merit to it. But I'm going to try and get him on my team just to see what happens.
I'm going to hold back comments till we get to him because I have a bunch to say.
All right, I love it. All right, let's go over to the next bracket over here. The next 4-5 matchup. We have our first quarterback that we're going to talk about, but he won this matchup, so we won't talk about him in this round. But Cam Ward wins this matchup 76-24 over running back Cam Scatterbo. And, of course, he gets a lot of this publicity, and people are really torn on where they're going to put him in Dynasty. But Scatterbo loses this matchup, again, 76-24. Josh, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on this running back? He kind of all over the place in the Dynasty world.
Yeah, it's hard not to like the guy when you watch him play, watch him really literally pour his heart and guts out there on the field to play. He's kind of slow, but at the same time, I don't really care about top line speed for running backs as much as a lot of people do, especially when it comes to the 40. He's really good at catching the ball out of the backfield. He'll throw his head in there with a charging linebacker and block for you. He'll do anything you ask. And I think NFL teams are just going to love him, and I think he's always going to be on the field. He'll do anything you need. So I like him. I don't know exactly where I want to draft him. I have a feeling people are going to be higher on him than me, so I probably won't have too many shares. But, yeah, I think he's going to be a good player.
Fair enough. John, what are your thoughts here on Cam Scatterbo?
Look, I like to be sneaky, look around, see where the NFL mainstream media has him, see where Twitter has him. And I'll say this right now. He's the most polarizing running back. I've seen him at number 3, and I'm like, oh, my God. And I've seen him outside the top 12. I mean, the ceiling and the floor in rankings is tremendous. But I want to be honest with viewers. I have him at number 12. I think he's a late day 3 value. If you got him like in the 3rd round, pick 20, I'm okay with that from an NFL team. I have to admit, when I watch the film, I leave with more questions than I have answers. I don't think his style of play, the double moves, the triple spin moves, the bouncing off of players, I loved it. I think he was the best, funnest running back to watch in college football. But in the NFL, we all know those linebackers, those safeties, they're not going to let him hit a double spin move. And if he does it, there's going to be a safety across his face and is going to put him in the ground. So I just wonder, does that style that was so successful for him, and Josh mentioned it, he was great to watch. It was awesome. I just don't see that in the NFL.
Yeah.
have we, I mean, other than Barry Sanders, and no one, you cannot be Barry Sanders. And I watched him at Oklahoma State, people. I'm old. I watched almost every year of him. He was in my fantasy teams. He is no Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders is the only one who could get away with the double spin move, the bounce off a guy and run. Scadaboo's going to get hurt in the NFL if he plays like that. Now, coaches will love him. There's going to be an organization that might take him in the second round because they love him. I get it. From a football perspective, you love him. I just don't know if that translates to NFL fantasy success for us.
Yeah, I think I'm with you both there as well. I think, fun running back to watch. I don't know if it translates to the NFL, so 100% agree there.
I mean, look what Saquon had to do just to avoid a massive hit. He had to do a spin and then jump backwards over someone. And that's just, he still got hit pretty hard on that play. He still got hit right in the face. So, I mean, yeah, like John said,
I love Scadaboo, but he's not the athlete that Saquon Barkley is. It's just, I'm sorry.
Absolutely not. All right, we'll move to our next 3-6 matchup here. We got a receiver versus a running back. We have wide receiver Trey Harris. He's a 3 seed, winning this matchup 67-37 over running back Devin Neal, the 6 seed here. Let's talk about Devin Neal, Josh. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I really like Devin Neal, and I'm going to say it 100 more times, not this show, but I don't care about 40 times in the combine. He almost ran a 4.6. I don't care about that. I'd much rather see game speed and tape and how he reads blocks. And I think he's really decisive. I think he plays with his eyes and feet. I think they work well together. He has really good ball security, falls forward, initial contact. And he's also one of the guys like Scadaboo. I think coaches are just going to love him because he does all the right things. He's got kind of like David Montgomery, maybe just a guy who's not flashy, doesn't do anything super, super well, but at the same time, he does everything good. And for NFL teams, that's very valuable. Let me see where I have him in my rankings. I have him 6 behind Judkins, so almost top 5.
That's pretty high there. I like it. John, what are your thoughts here on Devin Neal?
I've been a Devin Neal fan for 3 years. I liked when he popped as a freshman at Kansas. He's had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's a very good football player. I get the 40 time. It was not what we wanted at the combine, but I'll say this, it's not a complete disaster. He's a 3-down back. He picks up the blitz. He doesn't put the ball on the ground. He's explosive in space. I think he's a perfect rotational guy at a 50-50 split. I have him in the same bucket as Josh, but I have him a little lower. I do hope he goes in the second round, but I would not be surprised if he's in the third round of day 2. I'll say this right now. If he's in the third round of my dynasty drafts, I'm going to have a lot of Devin Neal. Yeah. He might need a little while. I honestly think his floor is Devin Singletary, and he has a higher ceiling. And if I get Devin Singletary in the third round of a draft, I'm very happy with that. I'm content. And that's, I think, his worst case scenario. I think he does have a nice ceiling in the right organization.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm kind of like y'all on Devin Neal as well. I have him right outside the top 5. I think I have him 6 or 7 right now. So I'm kind of with y'all as well. All right, we're moving to the next matchup here. This is the 4 seed running back Dylan Sampson versus the 5 seed wide receiver Jalen Knoll, and this is our first sort of upset in the matchup here. The 4 seed does fall here. Dylan Sampson falls 44-56 to Jalen Knoll. So let's talk about Dylan Sampson a little bit, John. What do you have him on him here?
It's clearly a projection. First, you have to say to yourself, he's only 20 years of age. I did not expect him to come out into the NFL. Loved him at Tennessee this year. He was on tons of my college fantasy football teams. Watched way too much Tennessee football this year. And I really, if you would ask me on December 1st, I would have said, young man, go back to college, put another great season on tape. You're in the SEC, right? But then he announced he's going pro, and I'm like, my first thought was he got really positive news from that NFL, right? They go to the advanced scouts. They ask him, what do you think your draft stock is? He goes in the NFL. His BMI is better than people think. It hits my benchmark of 30.4, so I like that. His scrimmage yards dominators 20% is fantastic. 40 career receptions, I love that. The only thing that is just a little yellow flag, not a red flag, he was timed on the football field, I believe 21 to 23 miles per hour, those advanced systems, but he ran a 4.46 at the 40. He might be better in pads and faster in pads than he does. 4.46 is not bad. I'm not, especially over 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to go earlier than everyone thinks. He's an SEC back at 20 years of age. I like him better than Jalen Wright last year, who ended up with Miami. They like SEC. I mean, come on, it's the SEC. The NFL likes these young men. And you have to say, I'm getting him at 21 as a rookie. I might get 22, 23, 24, 25 age on this young man. I like Sampson.
Yeah, good stuff. What about you, Josh? Where do you fall on Sampson?
Yeah, I really like him also. And my only real thing that I notice, and it's kind of nitpicky because he is only 20 years old, is when multiple people blitz, sometimes he'd kind of freeze and be kind of uncertain about where to pick up. But at the same time, he's 20 years old. You can work on that. That's really it. Like you said, I like him better than Wright last year. I'm very interested to see where he falls and see where he goes, as well as other people, but him especially, because I think with the right spot, he could really pop.
Yeah, I love it. All right, we're going to finish up the first round here with the last 3-6 matchup. The 3 seed wide receiver Matthew Golden, who was kind of the opposite of Isaiah Bond. I think he rose up in my rankings and a lot of people's rankings during the process here. But he wins this matchup 61-39 over the other quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, who's kind of been falling. He was sort of lauded as potentially the number 1 overall quarterback. He's definitely fallen in not only the NFL draft, but also in dynasty drafts, mock drafts as well. Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders a little bit, John. What are your thoughts on him?
I'm not a Shedeur Sanders guy, and I've been lower on him. He's my number 3 quarterback since December. I do my quarterback analysis. I go really deep in the summer, and then I'm pretty solid by about December 1st on the top 3 or 4 every year. Shedeur Sanders takes too many sacks. I don't know if it's processing or hero ball. I'm not exactly sure. I question his deep ball strength. He throws a lot. Remember Jeff Blake of the Cincinnati Bengals? Jeff, I know Josh is too young. You want to see some moonshot deep throws? Check out Jeff Blake in the 90s with the Bengals, man. He would throw one of those big arches, right? I mean, perfect placement. Yeah, great timing. But I see a lot of that with Shedeur, and I think this is the underrated thing. He had a great receiving core at Colorado, and they bailed him out a ton. I don't think people understand how good that receiving core. Obviously, the Heisman winner matters. But Will Shepard, LeJonte Thompson, Jimmy Horn, that's a great wide receiver. Excuse me. And you see on film, they bail him out a lot and gain a lot of yak yards. And I'm telling you, if you hold the ball for 3 seconds in the NFL and you start fading backwards, Jeff, I know you're shaking your head. He's going to get killed in the NFL. Yep. I mean, there are literally plays where he's got the ball for 6 seconds. Micah Parsons is hunting him down. Like he's not Myles Garrett will just literally put his head in the dirt. I mean, that's not happening at the NFL level. I don't see a lot. 1, 2, 3, boom. 1, 2, boom. That's not on there. I have a lot of questions about Shedeur.
Yeah, good stuff. What about you, Josh? Are you on the same boat as that, or do you like him more?
No, I actually agree. I have Jackson Dart ahead of him in my quarterback rankings. Yeah, I have Cam Ward 1, Dart 2. I'm kind of tempted to put Dart 1. That's another conversation. Yeah, he kind of his pocket awareness is pretty bad. He drifts back into like edge rushers lanes, and then he's not
so bad, dude. Just
he's
drifting. You're like, oh, son.
And then you're like, oh, okay, he's athletic enough to roll out. Nope, he's not very athletic getting out of the pocket either. Like he's I think he's a pretty good thrower, especially in zone. He's good at throwing into zone windows, and I think he's got some skills to be decent. But yeah, I'm pretty off on him. Come second, third round, if I really need a quarterback, maybe even late first, if I'm desperate, I might take a shot. But yeah, there's also a lot of baggage and drama that comes with that.
I didn't even want to go there, but yes, that's
that's all I'm going to say about
concern.
it. Yeah.
All right, love it. That is the first round. We'll go ahead and jump into the second round here with our first number 1 seed. And Josh, you kind of alluded to it earlier about the 2 guys in the first seed getting the luck of the draw with Aston Genty. He wins this matchup in a landslide as the number 1 seed, 100-0 over Eric Iomanner. Is that how you say it? Iomanner?
Iomanner, I believe, is what I've been pronouncing it.
All right, Iomanner. So Josh, let's talk about him a little bit. He got pretty much crushed in this matchup here, but still a decent receiver. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's the one I really wanted to see how he would fare out in this, but he didn't really have a chance to be a Cinderella. I really like. I'm just gonna call him Eric, just because I don't have to keep saying that. I really like him, and if you watch his tape against Travis Hunter, he absolutely abused Travis Hunter as a DB who was guarding him. He just bodied him, ran past him. He's got a lot to work on. He's not that great and explosive coming in and out of his cuts in the route running. That does lead to a lot of contested catches. But, I mean, he is really good at that. You can be like that, like Drake London type, but you really have to specialize in that and be elite. So I'm not really sure if he can do that, but he's, from what coaches say, he's really coachable. He's a really hard worker, and I think he's going to develop well with the right coaching. So it's kind of an upside pick. It might take a year or two, but I really like his skills and overall ability.
Yeah, good stuff. What about you, John? What are your thoughts on him?
I like him a lot also. He's in my top 5. He's much faster than people think.
Mm-hmm.
He was a track background when he was a young man in Canada. He was like on their national sprint team. He was ranked as like in the top 10. He's a classic X receiver. He's a boundary receiver. Those are hard to find. Even if I don't think he's a 1,400-yard ceiling like AJ Green or Julio Jones or anything, but I could see a really nice 900 to 11-yard season, like in his peak 3 or 4 years. Really like the young man. I will say this: if you watch Stanford football, their quarterbacking was poor. Let's just leave it at that. I would love to see him with like a Joe Burrow type who just actually got the ball in the perfect position, because he's really good with poor quarterback play.
Yep.
Stuff. All right, let's move down into our 2-3 matchup in this bracket. It is running back Quinshon Judkins and tight end Colt Loveland. Judkins takes this matchup 74-26. So, John, talk about Loveland a little bit.
I'm a big Loveland guy, and you have to project everyone. Michigan was terrible. Let me explain how bad they were. They were defending national champs. 3 quarterbacks threw for less than 1,700 yards. I mean, they were absolutely abysmal. I think Army almost threw for as many yards as the Michigan quarterbacks. So the fact that Loveland has any numbers, but you have to look at deeper numbers. One, he had a 35% team aerial dominator on an offense that literally could not throw the ball. And name a Michigan receiver, anyone. I dare you. And then receiving yards per team pass attempt this year, 1.89. My benchmark is 1.5. Loveland is a very good receiver. I am worried. He's a little light, 248. He's not going to get mean and nasty like George Kittle. He's not a great blocker. He's kind of, I think, that Dallas Goedert H-back type guy, but I do see the ceiling as a pass catcher. I do think he's better than Dalton Kincaid. Josh had mentioned him earlier. Loveland's younger. It had played in a bigger, tougher conference. I like him a lot more than Dalton Kincaid coming out.
All right, good stuff. Now, Josh, you talked about him a little bit, but anything else you want to add to that?
No, he nailed it. He's a crisp route runner, really good agility. I don't really think he's going to be that traditional tight end that stands in and blocks. And if he does get pressed on the line by a bigger guy, he might have some trouble with that. But besides that, he's going to be really good in the open field, really good intermediate to deep threat to keep the linebackers, in check.
Good stuff. All right, moving down to the 1-4 matchup in the next brackets, we have the 1 seed Amarion Hampton takes his matchup 90-10 over wide receiver Jaden Higgins. And Higgins was a guy getting some love in the chat earlier. I know Jamie's a fan of Jaden Higgins. So, Josh, why don't you kick this one off for us? Give us your thoughts on the receiver Jaden Higgins.
Yeah, Jaden Higgins is one of my honestly favorite receivers in this draft. When you just watch him play, if you didn't realize how tall he was, he doesn't play like someone who's 6'4". He's really agile, really good making cuts in the route, and he's got some of the best hands I've seen to match with that agility and route running. I think he's going to be a really good weapon. I don't remember off the top of my head what he ran for the 40.
I have it right here, 4.47, which for 6'4", 214 is. That's really pretty impressive.
That is, and he's a lot more agile than that too. So that mixed with the agility, I think he's going to translate really, really well to the NFL. He's one of the ones where I'm kind of interested to see where he goes and where he's really going to be in the pecking order on a team. But I like him a lot.
Yeah, I just pulled up Player Profiler, and his speed score is in the 94th percentile with his height and his speed. Yeah. So, yeah, very good stuff. What about you, John? What are your thoughts on Higgins?
I do like him. I mean, he shared, we'll talk, I think his teammate is in the poll, right? Did I miss that? So we'll talk about his teammate. When you have a 36% dominator with a teammate who's also going to be drafted in the second round, that's really impressive. Just be aware, everyone. He played at Eastern Kentucky, which is an FCS program. So if you do look at just some baseline production numbers, he's only been at the FCS or at the FBS level for 2 years. But you have to watch the film, look at his skills, look at his size and his athleticism. I like him a lot. This is a tough matchup, unfortunately, for the young man, but he's going to be a good player in the NFL. But I do wonder, is he just a big slot receiver or a Z? I don't think he's fast enough to be a classic X, 95% out on the boundary one-on-one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I do want to add one more thing. When his teammate was not on the field, Jalen Noel, his numbers went skyrocketed. It was 80 routes, so it is a small sample size, but targets per route run was almost 40%. First downs per route run was almost 20, and yards per route run was 3.6. So I think he does have that ability to be the guy and be an alpha receiver on a team.
Good stuff. All right, we got the 2-3 matchup here. We got the 2 seed wide receiver Luther Burden going up against the 3 seed Tyler Warren. This is
they got it wrong. Sorry.
It's a very close matchup. Burden does take it 57-43. So John, I'm gonna let you go first here. So you think they got it wrong on this one with Tyler Warren getting the losing end of this deal?
Oh, Tyler Warren, I'm going to draft him all week long over Luther Burden. And I see Luther Burden's upside, and I like him as a prospect. But Tyler Warren, man, we know that the cheat code in the NFL is the elite tight end. In fantasy football, when you get that player who's like scoring 3 more points on an average every week with the ceiling of what is it, the 28-point day out of a tight end, 8 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that just doesn't come often. And when I plugged Warren into my model, he just smashes, man. 34% aerial dominator, receiving yards per team pass attempt. I mentioned it with Loveland. He is a yard higher, 2.82 than Loveland. That's incredible for a tight end. 75% catch rate. I get it. People are looking at him. He played for 5 years, but he's 6'6" and he's big in the butt at 257. And here's what's going to happen. He's going to get a chance to run the football. He ran a lot of wildcat. He ran goal line. They're going to use him creatively in the NFL. I just like him. I think he's a top 15 pick. I would not be surprised if he's a top 10 in the NFL.
Good stuff. I love it. Josh, what are your thoughts on Tyler Warren? And do you think they got it wrong too? You think Warren should have won this matchup versus Luther Burden?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I also can definitely see, the case for Warren winning. I think it should have honestly been like, I'm gonna say that's only 7 points apart. It's not that bad. I really like Luther Burden though. He was honestly my first. I'm kind of new to Devi. He was my first Devi pick, I think 3 years ago. So there's a certain. I'm a little biased there, I think, but I think Luther Burden's honestly falling a little bit, even though he beat Tyler Warren in this. I'm seeing him fall and get a little bit of bad press, but God, Missouri was one of the hardest ranked teams to watch in the entire country.
They were bad on
terrible. So I don't blame him for the production because the year before he had 1,200 yards with an equally as bad quarterback. So I think he's going to be a great player. And it kind of gives me shades of Garrett Wilson, and that kind of excites me.
Fair enough. Any thoughts on Warren before we move to the next matchup?
I really like Warren. I like any tight end that teams are willing to hand the ball off to and running, like Brock Bowers. So any guy that they will work to get the ball in different ways, I'm very interested in on the tight end position. And it's a position to get an advantage in. Like Brock Bowers' positional advantage makes him potentially a top 5 pick in Dynasty startups. Like I'd be willing to do that if I don't want to start quarterback. So
good stuff. All right, we got another 1-4 matchup here. This was probably the closest as far as a 1 seed goes in this round. Wide receiver Tet McMillan wins his matchup 60-40 over quarterback Cam Ward. So we talked a little bit about Shedeur Sanders already. John, go ahead and give us your thoughts on Cam Ward. And is he your number 1 quarterback right now?
He is my number 1. I think I base that on he has the highest floor out of the 3. He doesn't have the ceiling, I think, of Jackson Dart as a fantasy player, but he's a better runner than people give him credit for. He's actually kind of sneaky good around the goal line. Like he's really good when they have like 1st and 8 to go to goal and he can run the ball in. But he's not a Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen type runner by any stretch of the imagination. He has very good ball placement. I love the fact that he played in 3 different offenses and mastered 3 different offenses. If you don't know, he started at Incarnate Ward in Texas, FCS level, moved up to Washington State and the Pac-12 at the time, and then he finished his career at Miami with Cristobal as the head coach, which is all 3 kind of different offensive, different teams, different competition level. He's a bright young man. He can come in and learn your playbook from day 1. He can definitely command your offense. I think his ceiling might be Kirk Cousins, which I'm okay. If he gets me 4,100 yards and 32 touchdowns in his prime 3 years, perfectly fine with that. He could hit a higher ceiling if you gave him Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Maybe he gets to 40 touchdowns, but I would not project that. I do like Cam Ward.
Good stuff. Josh, any thoughts on Cam Ward?
Yeah, look, I love a gunslinger at quarterback. I feel like it's kind of a dying breed,
Yeah,
like Brett Favre types. I like that. His ability to learn new plays and be able to adapt is really kind of, I think, not being talked about enough. He's got amazing arm talent. Release quickness is really good, and I like that he can really fit throws into like tight windows. And I really
has chutzpah. You're like, that was right. Like,
and his processing ability is pretty good too. So being able to catch blitzes and being able to read that, I think, will translate pretty well too. I like him.
All right, moving to the 2-3 matchup in this bracket. It is the number 2 seed Caleb Johnson, running back, versus the 3 seed wide receiver Trey Harris. Johnson takes this matchup 73-27. Josh, we'll go to you first on this one. Give me your thoughts on Trey Harris here, the loser of this matchup.
Yeah, I thought this one would be a little bit closer, even though I love Caleb Johnson. I'm seeing a lot of hype for Trey Harris. Less so after he ran a 4.56, but I think he's got really good size and speed. I think he's a good deep ball threat. My only issue with him, I do afraid he kind of has like the Alec Pierce thing where he's going to be a little boom bust, might just rely on deep balls and just hitches and certain screen routes, maybe kind of limited route tree kind of interested to see. I don't know if it's out yet. Reception perception, see what his route tree is and success on all the routes are, but just the little bit I've seen, it's kind of limited and might be, and I don't know if that'll translate super well, but he's really big, really fast. I think his game speed is faster than his 40.
Yeah, the player comp they have on Player Profiler is Marquez Callaway, which similar what you just talked about, big and fast is kind of what his profile is. John, what about you? What are your thoughts on Trey Harris?
I like him. I think he's going to go on day 2, probably late second round. I do see a wide range of outcomes for Trey Harris. There are brilliant plays on film, and then other times you're like, what is happening? What is he doing? He comes from the G5 level, but he succeeded in the SEC. He did get injured his last year. I think he missed the last 4 or 5 games for the Rebels this year. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be a great player, but I do like him because I think you can play him on the X. I do think he can play outside. And if he hits his ceiling, he could be a really, really good NFL player. I just don't think it's a high percentage that he hits that ceiling in the range of outcomes.
Fair enough. All right, we got 2 more matchups in the second round here. The next one is the second most lopsided victory. We got the 1 seed Travion Henderson going up against wide receiver Jalen Noel. Henderson takes this matchup 88-12. John, talk about Jalen Noel a little bit here.
He got a bad rap. This is a bad matchup for this young man because I really love Jalen Noel. He's probably my biggest riser throughout this season at wide receiver. I had Higgins over Noel all the way until about November. Then as I watched more and more Cyclones, and I have to admit, I've watched more Iowa State football than any human being who lives in the Northeast should ever admit to. But they've had between Breece Hall and David Montgomery and Brock Purdy, and now they have Rocco Beck and all these wide receivers. I just watched a lot of Iowa State football. And as I watch them more and more, I'm like, man, does this guy remind me? I think of a Patriots receiver, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, and who's the other big one, the inside slot. But he would have fit perfectly with Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick's system, completely dominating from the slot. He's quick, he's fast, he's big, he's tough. What I like about him is he can attack the safeties deep. And if you can get a slot receiver who can keep those safeties honest, you can change your entire offense. And, man, if you put him with an X receiver, a classic X receiver, and you have to deal with Noel and him, oh, that's a problem. I like Jalen Noel a ton.
Good stuff. What about you, Josh? What are your thoughts on Noel?
Yeah, I like him. I'm a little bit on the fence about how high I want to actually put him. I do have a few concerns. Mostly on like speed turns. He drifts a little bit, and that I'm afraid some NFL corners might be able to undercut that. And he's also had a few focus drops, but that can be worked on. Also drops. I try not to let that really decide how I feel about a player ultimately. But I do think he's got really good special teams upside also, which will keep him on a roster and keep him, relevant on teams. So that's also kind of quells any concerns I have. I do like him. I think he's going to be a great slot receiver.
Good stuff. All right, last matchup of the second round. We got wide receiver Emeka Mbuke, the number 2 seed, going up against the 3 seed Matthew Golden. And I mentioned that Matthew Golden has been kind of rising up mock drafts, but he loses this matchup to Emeka 74-26. John, give me your thoughts on Matthew Golden, and has he taken an upturn on your rankings as the offseason progressed as well?
Oh, absolutely. Since the playoff game, the SEC championship game, and then the playoff game, Matthew Golden was so good down the stretch. And I play in a college dynasty league, C2C league, and I've had Matthew Golden for the last 3 years. And the one thing people talk about is production at Houston. I just want to remind people, that Houston Cougar team with Dana Holgerson at the end absolutely fell apart. I mean, they had no quarterback play or anything. It was bad after Tank Dell left. So I understand why his numbers are bad. I try to put him in context. And then he went out. I did not see a 4.29. I mean, I love the film. I love the loss. I thought he played great against Ohio State in that loss. He played well against Arizona State in the first round of the playoffs. I love the tape and when he ran a 4.29. I agree, straight line speed isn't everything. But it does tell me he has a lot of athleticism, a lot more than I thought. I just think he's smooth. He's easygoing. And once again, he's very young. This is a projection. You're getting him as a 21-year-old rookie. What is he going to be at 25? I mean, that you have to ask yourself when we bring him into our program, we get him with NFL coaching, and he dedicates himself. What can he be? I think the ceiling's really high.
Yeah, I love Golden a lot. And actually, I bet against him on running a fast speed on underdog. And when I saw that 4.29, I was like, "Holy shit!" He was way.
Yeah, I did not see that. Yeah. I thought he'd be like a 4.4. Like that's what I would have guessed.
Yep. What about you, Josh? What are your thoughts on Golden?
Yeah, I see kind of a Chris Olave type player. I have noticed on plays where the play breaks down or he feels like he's covered, he does kind of give up on plays. And depending on who the quarterback is, you don't ever want to give up on play. You want to keep working with him, try and work back. So I think that can be coached though. He's really good at point of catch. I liked how he can like sink in and out of routes and open quickly. So I think he could be a big play threat also in like a double route. Yeah, I think he's going to be really good. You just watch big games. He rises to the moment. He's always there to make the big play. This is what I said about Ladd McConkey. We didn't have much stats to go on with him, but if you watch the Georgia games, when they need a play, he's wide open. He leaves his defender behind, and he's going to be a quarterback's best friend. So
love it. All right, that wraps up round 2. We are moving into round 3, which is the elite. What are we at? We're at the seeds. Yeah, we're at the elite
8.
Yeah, the Elite 8 here. We got no upsets. All 1s and 2 seeds make it to the next round. We'll go to the most lopsided one here. Running back Aston Genty versus the number 2 seed Quinshon Judkins. Genty wins this matchup 93-7. But this is a good running back draft, John. And Judkins is one of those guys that are kind of going in the first round of Dynasty mocks. Give me your thoughts on Judkins here.
I absolutely have loved him since he was at Mississippi. I believe he's got 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He popped immediately as a true freshman for the Rebels. He's 5'8". I did not think he was 221 or 5'11". I didn't think he was 221. He holds that weight. There doesn't appear to be any excess weight on that body and frame of his. So his BMI comes in at 30.8. And I'm a little bit of a sizeist. I'm sorry. Size matters. He's got the classic NFL size. And then he went out and ran a 4.48. Oh, man, with a 1.51 in the 10-yard split. He's got everything, man. 59 career receptions, 50 total touchdowns. He's got a 1,700-yard season from yards from scrimmage on his resume. I get it. He split carries for Ohio State. The numbers don't look unbelievable, pop off the page. But the young man decided to go to Ohio State, and he knew that Trevion Henderson was there. He could have taken more money somewhere else, and he decided to go and get himself a national championship, and he got it. I love the tape. He's very big in my model. I think he's worthy of a first round. You just can't beat Genty. That's another story, right?
There's no beating Genty. I think looking at this whole draft, I think Genty might be the one that is dominated. In the 7 years we've done this, he's dominated every single round, whereas in the years past, it wasn't quite that clear cut. Josh, what's your thoughts on Judkins?
Yeah, I like Judkins, honestly, more last year before he came out. I'm kind of surprised he didn't go out in the draft last year. I thought last year's draft class would have been a little bit better, but I do really like him. I was kind of surprised he ran so fast because I'm a big Notre Dame fan, and watching the game, he had a breakaway. I thought it was a touchdown, but true freshman Leonard Moore just caught up to him easily, and I thought that was alarming. I thought he was slow. But then I looked at Leonard Moore, and he's a true freshman, but he might run a 4.29, 4.3. So he's just a really fast player. Would have caught anybody, and he's had 3,000-yard years. So I don't want to let top line speed, really stop me from getting a productive, true 3 years in a row. That's insane.
Yeah, that's it. His speed score is a 91 percentile because of his size, and he's a lot faster than he looks for sure.
He does. He's faster than he looks on film.
Yep.
But that's why athleticism matters, because the film kind of can throw you a monkey wrench when you watch it sometimes.
Agreed. All right, we got the next 1-2 matchup. What running back Omarion Hampton at 76 percentage over receiver Luther Burden, who got 24 in this matchup. Josh, I know you talked about a little bit about Luther Burden a little bit earlier, but anything else you want to talk about with him?
No, I don't want to add much. He's got really good upside. I thought this one should be a lot closer than this, but Omarion Hampton's being hyped up a lot on Twitter across everywhere. So it's not super surprising.
Fair enough. What about you, John? Anything you want to say about Burden here?
I'm not a Burden guy. I do feel he's a value. If it's the second round and you're like pick 2, 3, and Burden is sitting there, I think you have to take him based on his sophomore season and watch the film. He was better as a sophomore than he was as a junior. There's no question. Josh mentioned it earlier. Wasn't very pretty for the Tigers offense this year. I do think he's a slot receiver, though. I mean, we haven't seen it, so I can't tell you he can't play outside. But what we have on film are a lot of drags, a lot of crossers, a lot of medium routes, quick routes. Doesn't mean he can't, but we don't have film of it. I do think it's a little bit of a projection, and he did dominate the SEC at a very young age. So I have him at number 5. I understand why Hampton won this battle between the two, but you can't let him slip too far. His ceiling is too great.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'd be willing to take him where Worthy was going, that 111 into the first. If there's no one else you really like, I'll be pulling the trigger on him there. But yeah, definitely early second.
Good stuff. And slot, being a slot only receiver isn't the death sentence it used to be.
No, it's not, and he's not like it was 10 years ago.
Yep. All right, the next 1-2 matchup we have here is wide receiver Tet McMillan against running back Travion Henderson. Tet takes
versus Caleb Johnson. You have.
Oh, am I in the wrong one? Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I'm jumping to the final 4 there. My bad.
It's all right.
Tet McMillan versus Caleb Johnson, the 2 seed here. McMillan takes this matchup 80-20 over Caleb Johnson. And John, we'll go to you first. Give me your thoughts on Johnson here. Another good-looking running back in this draft.
Oh, my God, I do like Caleb Johnson. But I do think he's scheme-dependent. He needs to get into a zone scheme, outside run scheme. It might seem simple, but I think he's a perfect Shanahan back. Think about what Shanahan has done with smaller backs at San Francisco. Caleb Johnson is 222, 224, 6'1". He had a 40% market share of Iowa's football this year.
Wow.
He had 1,725 scrimmage yards. Yards of contact per attempt, 4.42 is astronomical. And 43 carries of over 10-plus yards on a really bad offense. Man, I think he can be special, but limited ceiling. I don't think he can catch, but I don't think he's a route runner. I think he's a dump off screen, a check down type pass catcher. So maybe he doesn't have that 50 catch upside. But man, if he gets with the right system, or if he got with Jaden Daniels in Washington, and you could implement that kind of RPO on the outside, I mean, him and Jaden Daniels could be nasty together.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that call. Jaden Daniels and him would be beautiful.
It would be beautiful.
What about you, Josh? What are your thoughts on Caleb Johnson?
Look, I love Caleb Johnson. Before any of this, I had him up there at 2, maybe 3. I moved Hampton up ahead of him, so I have him 4 overall in running backs. But I'm just waiting for the right landing spot to move him up there to like 2, maybe 3. The 1,500 yards, 21 touchdowns. This comp might seem kind of ugly to people, but I've seen some comps of Tyler Algier, just the way he runs, and with the upside of like a guy like Arian Foster, because Arian Foster was not fast. He ran a 4.68, but he's very decisive, very patient, and I think he can read blocks very well in the zone scheme. And once he's good at reading it, and he's decisive once he knows where to go. So like a blend of patience and decisiveness, that's kind of rare, and I really like watching him run.
Good stuff. Arian Foster, that's a throwback there, Josh. Did you?
It's a good call.
Yeah.
It's a really good call.
I love it. All right, last matchup here in the Elite Eight. We got running back Travion Henderson versus receiver Emeka Mbuke. And Josh, I'll go to you first here. Henderson takes this matchup 63-37. So give me your thoughts here on Mbuke.
Yeah, Mbuke, I hate to call someone kind of a boring player, but because that sometimes gets a negative connotation. But Emeka Mbuke is kind of boring to me, and that I mean this in a good way. He's kind of like, in a way, like JSN. He does everything right. And kind of like Chris Godwin's kind of who he reminds me of. He can play all over the field, runs routes very well. I think he's going to be extremely productive at the NFL level. He's played in college a lot, has a lot of reps, has a lot of routes run. He hasn't really been off. He got injured a little bit, I think 2 years ago, but besides that, he's been pretty durable. And I think he's just going to plug and play, be a top 24 wide receiver. Maybe like not in how he plays, but Terry McLaurin, like where he's always in the top 24, but never really in the top 12 or with wide receiver one upside, but very safe, very high floor play.
Yeah, I think that's what Ryan said too in our scouting report is he's got one of the safest floors of any receiver in the draft.
And I love that in rookie drafts because sometimes you can take second round pick and it could just be completely washed, but even late first, so at least you know what you're getting with him.
Absolutely. John, what are your thoughts here on Mbuke?
I love him. I fell in love with him as more I watched the film after they won the championship and I broke him down more. He's just so damn consistent. I do think he has an incredibly high floor. He has a nice ceiling. But, we all play in big dynasty leagues, right, where you got 3 starting receivers. You got to have 2 or 3 flex. Like, you just drafted Buka, and for the next 4 years, you just put him into that 2 or 3 wide receiver spot, and you just let him roll.
Yep.
Like, every year it's going to be 75 catches, 1,100 yards, 7-8 touchdowns. Perfectly fine. I love him. He's my number 2 receiver.
Nice. Oh, number 2. You got him. We got him.
Yeah, I think he's a very good route runner, and I think he's very versatile. I think you can play him in the slot, out on the X. You can put him in the Z. You can put him in motion. I think he's smart. I really do like him.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm at 4.
Good deal. All right. Moving into the final 4. All the 1 seeds advance, so no upsets this year.
Oh, no ups! Wow,
no upsets at all. So the first matchup we have here, I thought would be a little bit closer because y'all mentioned Amari and Hampton had some buzz there. I thought he might be a little bit closer to buzz, but Ashton Gency takes this matchup 92-8. So John, give us your thoughts on Amari on Hampton.
Anyone who has Hampton over Ashton Genty, you're just trying to get clicks.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Amarian Hampton. And when I did my Devy rankings last year, and even the year before after his freshman year, people were not in on Amarian Hampton. He was not on the radar. And I still liked him, but I was worried North Carolina lost the Patriots quarterback. Why? I'm old man brain happening. Who's the the quarterback for New England last year at North Carolina?
Drake May.
I thought losing Drake May, and I think they lost 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. So I told people on shows, don't be surprised if his production goes down because the efficiency of the offense would go down. Nope, dead wrong. He was even better this year. Literally, he was the one-man show for the Tar Heels. He was incredible. 45 runs over 10-plus yards. Yards after contact per attempt, 4.3 yards. That is outstanding. And then he had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Man, 6 foot 221. I'm all in. I love Hampton.
Yeah, one thing when I watched him on film that just jumped out at me was his explosion, right? When he decided to go it was like, whoa, that really jumped out at you.
Yeah, he goes.
It was awesome. Josh, what are your thoughts on Hampton?
Yeah, I love Martin Hampton. I think it's not getting quite talked about enough how good he is as a receiver too. So I think he can do everything. He's a 3-down back. Man, this dude's really fun to watch. Any other year, he'd have a lot better shot at taking down the 1 seed in one of these tournaments. But yeah, you guys nailed it. I love him.
Good stuff. All right, the other matchup of 2 1 seeds, we got receiver Tet McMillan against running back Travion Henderson. This one's a little bit closer, but Tet McMillan takes this one 62-38. Josh, I want you to talk about Travion Henderson, who's another running back that's in here that's probably going to be a first-round guy this year.
Yeah, so I love Travion Henderson. He's one of the most explosive backs in this. Even though he ran a 4.43, I think he's got a lot more burst and speed on the field. A lot of people were saying him and Omarion Hampton were Sonic and Knuckles, similar to David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs. I've seen that being floated around. I don't know if I agree with that as much. I kind of see him being more of like maybe a slightly faster Aaron Jones type player. But Aaron Jones for a few years there was RB1. And I think he's got a little bit better in the passing game. And I think he's got more upside than that. That's just kind of the player. It kind of reminds me of who he could be in the NFL. I love Travion Henderson. I am kind of afraid he might need another back to take a little bit of the work off of him. That's just kind of how they treated it in college. I don't know if that's by design. So I'd be interested to see if he can really handle a strong workload. But even without one, he can be very, very good for fantasy, kind of like Jameer Gibbs is. Not being a true RB1, getting all the touches.
Good stuff. John, what are your thoughts here on Henderson?
I'm a big Henderson guy. I have him at number 3. I do think we need to judge him by efficiency, not volume. And I think this answers Josh's question a little bit. He's not going to be a volume back. You're not going to give him 20 carries and 5 or 6 receptions. But I think he could be 14 to 16 carries consistently with 6 receptions every week. And you're hoping for that big one explosion home run every game, chunk plays. He can get you a chunk play in the running game, and he can get you a chunk play in the passing game. I do think he looks like a 60-40 split. And if you have like a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter, you might put in your big bully back, right? The guy to grind out yardage, and maybe he doesn't get the goal line carries that you might like. So I wonder if his touchdown equity might be capped at 10 touchdowns. I just don't ever see a 20 touchdown season out of him. He might get 7 rushing and 5 receiving, right? Like that. They're going to use him in different ways, but he should get 220 to 250 touches a year. I think he's the bigger half of a rotational guy, but you need a bigger back with him. So I read somewhere it's like, what if the Giants took him in the round 2? I think that's a total disaster. Tyrone Tracy and him are too similar. Not in style. Tracy needs a bigger back too, right? They need a grinder. Travion Henderson, he might be a perfect guy to replace J.T. Robbins out in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Like, he's that type of guy, explosive nature. He's just not going to be a volume back in my book.
Is I think he's the best pass-catching running back in this draft, you think?
I do. It's close, but yes, I do think he's the best pass catcher. I will say, route running, we could argue, but with the ball in his hands, he's the best.
Fair enough. All right, we have reached the final 2 guys here. Obviously, Ashton Genty, who just kind of blitzed through this whole entire tournament, is in the championship game, and he's going up against Tet McMillan. And Tet can brag that he got the biggest chunk of the percentages of all the, but it's not a big chunk. He lost this matchup 89-11. So we'll talk about
the gap.
Yeah, close the gap a little bit. We'll talk about Tet first, and then we'll talk about Genty, of course, who is obviously the winner of this whole thing. Josh, kick us off here with Tet.
I mean, look, Tet McMillan's like a prototypical what you want out of a receiver. He's tall, he's fast, he's a good route runner, he's got good hands, and I think I would be interested. I don't have it pulled up. What's his speed score on Player Profiler? Because with his size, I think he ran a really good 40.
He did. If you
I've been too busy to really.
The pro day, it's a 4.53 about. He was a 4.48 on campus, but I always add about 5/10 of a seconds on it.
Yeah, speed score is in the 89th percentile. So pretty good speed score for sure at 6'4".
Yes, 219. He's a big boy.
Oof. Yeah. But yeah, I love him. I think he's a easy 102. We'll talk about Genty. I think I even put a tier break between him and Genty. Just the position and stuff. But I think he's going to be a smash. I think he's going to be a really good. I don't really see too many outcomes where the floor just completely falls out and he's a complete bust. But
I think in my initial rankings, now granted this is back in January, and unlike John, I don't watch college football at all.
No.
I watch after the season's over with, and I have a complete bias, unbiased going into it, looking at it. And I had Tet number 1 overall, and then I got killed for having him over Genty. So I went back and watched it again and said, okay, I can see what y'all see in Genty. I'll move Tet back down to number 2. But I did like Tet a lot when I watched him. What about you, John? What are your thoughts on McMillan?
I really like him. I mean, there's always a role for a dominant X receiver in the NFL. Let's say he's in the same bucket as Cortland Sutton, T. Higgins, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr. had a better prospect profile. I get it. But if you just look at what he did with the Cardinals, he had a nice year, not a great year. So let's say he's your classic X. If I get Cortland Sutton and a healthy Cortland Sutton and a better quarterback play, I think McMillan is looking at 1,100-yard season, dominates on the boundary, dominates in the middle of the field. He's a long strider with the ball in his hands. His catch rate was not as good as I hoped, but I don't think he has bad hands. He had a 63% catch rate. Now, a couple things happened. Bad quarterback play, and they just threw the ball to him because they literally didn't have anyone else. He had a team aerial dominator of 44%. Receiving yards per team pass attempt, he was over 3. That's very impressive. My benchmark is a 2.5. I really like him. I think it's prospect fatigue. People have been watching him since like August, and he's been at the top of the rankings, and now people are finding holes. I get it. He is not A.J. Green, Julio Jones, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. He's not those. Those don't come around very often, folks. He's a very good boundary X wide receiver at the NFL level. I'll take it all the time. I mean, my model loves him, and I get maybe he rounds things off and maybe he seems a little lackadaisical. But, man, I mean, everything else says he's a really good prospect.
I just remember week 1, he goes out 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Everyone talks about next week against Northern Arizona, 2 receptions, 11 yards.
Yeah.
Just that switch was wild, and people on Twitter were totally being reasonable about it, as you guys know. But then he went out and had 11 and 138. So I just remember the juxtaposition of that was kind of wild.
But Twitter and reasonable can't be used in the same sentence.
No.
All right. Obviously, the winner of this entire bracket, Ashton Genty. Josh, I'm going to go to you first here because I want John to close it out on Ashton Genty and what his thoughts are. So give me your thoughts on Genty first, Josh.
Yeah, I just have one stat that I just go back to, and then I'll turn it to John because, I mean, there's just not a ton to say. This stat really says it. Since 2003, college football rushing leaders, Ashton Genty's in first with 3,900. Hampton has 3,100. Taj Brooks, 3,000. R.J. Harvey, 29,900. And in fifth is Ashton Genty after contact with 2,951.
Wow.
So he's fifth in rushing yards after contact over anybody in just complete rushing yards. And that's just wild to me. That just shows his contact balance, his skills. And I think against Penn State, he missed or broke 22 tackles against a really good defense. So that's all I got to say. Dude's going to be a freaking stud.
Yeah. All right, John, give me your thoughts on Genty.
First, the best running back I've ever seen in college is Barry Sanders. There was nothing like it. And my friends who are young, that season, that Heisman winning season that he had, literally go watch. Like, if you can get your hands on 2 or 3 full games, kick returning, running the football. I mean, he was just simply incredible. The reason I mention that, I think he's had the second best college season I've ever seen, and I'm almost 60. He was just simply unbelievable. And I've been watching football forever, but I only go back because I have quantifiable evidence of my ranking since 2014. I don't want to go back because I didn't publish it. But since 2014, here are my top 4 prospects at running back. Saquon Barkley, still the best prospect I ever saw coming out of Penn State. Ezekiel Elliott was the second best coming out of Ohio State. Jonathan Taylor, I was all in, loved him coming out of Wisconsin, and Bijan Robinson coming out of Texas. If you told me right now, where do I put Ashton Genty in those 4, I'm putting him number 3.
Wow.
That's how good he is. It's Saquon, Ezekiel Elliott, Ashton Genty, followed by Jonathan Taylor and Bijan Robinson. I was a little concerned about G5 level in Boise State last summer, but it doesn't matter anymore. Everything he did this year, unfreaking believable. He should go in the top 10. I don't see him making it to Dallas. If he does make it to Dallas at 12 and they don't take him, Jerry, I don't know what you're doing. But, like, he should go in the top 10.
For real. I love it.
Also, imagine having that season, and I'm not going to get into the controversy of it, and not winning the Heisman. Like, both people, I wish there was a way they both could win it, but that's just so crazy. It breaks my heart that he couldn't at least have something for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up there with, if you look back at like the Marcus Allen Heisman, if you look back at the Barry Sanders Heisman, he's in that, like, holy crap, what a season he put on. Earl Campbell at Texas. I grew up in the running back era. It was a running back award until this century. Now it's become a quarterback. It just, you know what? It was the uniqueness of Travis Hunter.
Oh, yeah. No, I get it.
Played both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's another story.
Absolutely. All right, fellas, that wraps up our 7th annual bracket show. I want to thank you both for coming on. Josh, coming on short notice. Ryan told me this morning he couldn't make the show, so really appreciate you coming on. John, as always.
Shout out to Ryan. We missed you, brother.
Yeah. John, as always, this is our 7th year now. It's kind of crazy to think back. I went back and watched it, and my beard wasn't as gray. I was a lot thinner. It really ages you when you go back and watch these videos. But let's go around the room real quick, fellas. Give us your Twitter handle. Plug anything you're working on. We'll go to you first, John.
I'm Gridiron Skull 91. I couldn't afford the A and the R when I signed up over 14 years ago. So it's Gridiron Skull 91. All my written profiles are on Player Profile. Check them out. Right now, I think I have 36 prospects up there. They're broken down by prospect resume, my scouting report, and my model. You can find a link to my model so you see my rankings. This weekend, I'm coming out with part 2 of the running backs. So there'll be over 40 prospects up there. And the last article I do every year will be my sleepers. And that'll come out about 2 weeks before the NFL draft to get you ready for your Dynasty drafts.
Good stuff. I love it. Josh.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, very rarely tweeting anymore, at Rotonaut. But as the season comes out, I'll be a little more active. Yeah, you can find. I just now really uploaded some rookie rankings. I'm really going to dive in the next week or two. You can find all that at GoingFor2.com, as well as my regular Dynasty rankings. I have kept those fairly updated. Me and my co-host Brian will be doing a show. I don't know exactly when. That'll be Saturday nights, Saturday Night Fives. Usually just a Dynasty show. We talk about 5 topics. Just come hang out with us. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thanks for having me on. It was good to be back. Good to get back on camera.
Good.
Thank you, Jeff. I love it.
Yep.
And nice meeting you, Josh.
You too. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Good stuff. All right, fellas, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. You can follow me on Blue Sky as well at GoingFor2.com. And you will catch me and Ryan. We're still doing our two-a-days. If you haven't caught any of our scouting reports, they're all 10 minutes and under. I think we're done. We've done 12 now, so we have a couple more to do before the NFL draft kicks off. So me and Ryan will get back to it next week with our two-a-days. So make sure you find those on TikTok and on YouTube. For Josh, for John, I am Jeff, and we will see y'all next time.